Right now, someone in Australia is being asked a simple question: how much do you need to earn to feel rich? And the average answer is $389,000 a year. That's nearly 4 times the median salary. And it tells us something uncomfortable. Not about money, but about how our brains work. Because today we're going to walk through every pay level in Australia, but not the way you've seen before. We're going to show you what money actually does to your brain, your time, and your happiness at each stage. Real data, real psychology, and the real cost of every dollar you earn in 2026. And there's an exact dollar amount. Where more money stops making you happier, we'll get to that. Here's a fact that might surprise you: Australia pays the highest minimum wage on the entire planet, $18.12 US per hour. That's more than double America's federal minimum wage of $7.25, more than the UK's $15.67, more than Germany's, more than Canada's. On paper that sounds incredible, and if you're watching this from overseas you might be thinking Australians have it made. But here's the thing: when your rent in Sydney costs more than rent in Manhattan, and a flat white costs you $6, and a head of broccoli costs $4.50, the world's highest minimum wage starts looking a lot less impressive. Let's put real numbers on this. The national minimum wage right now sits at $24.95 per hour. That's roughly $49,300 a year, but here's what the international rankings don't show you. The cost of living in Australia is nearly 6% higher than in the United States, according to Numbeo. And that gap hits hardest at the bottom. Groceries in Australia rose between 2.3 and 4.2% in 2025 alone. And the people who felt that the most were the households already struggling to get by. The ones on government support, the ones earning minimum wage. So you've got the highest minimum wage on earth, and millions of people holding it still can't put money away. Still can't build an emergency fund, still can't picture a future where they own a home. It's not a failure of the individual, it's a paradox of the system. The paycheck looks world-class. The price tags look world-class too, and when you divide one by the other the math doesn't add up the way you'd expect. But here's what most salary videos will never tell you: there's a secret pay rise hiding in plain sight. And it has nothing to do with your boss or your performance review. It's your postcode. Let me explain. Earning $80,000 a year in Sydney and earning $80,000 a year in Townsville are two completely different lives, and I don't mean a little different, I mean structurally fundamentally different. Townsville is 43% cheaper than Sydney according to Finder data. Rent alone in Hobart is roughly $1,280 a month less than in Sydney. Let that sink in. Same job, same salary, $1,280 a month more in your pocket just by living somewhere else. Here's how that plays out: at $80,000 in Townsville you can rent a decent 2-bedroom place on your own. You can put money into savings every single fortnight. You can eat out on weekends without checking your balance first. You live like someone earning $120,000 in Sydney. At that same $80,000 in Sydney you're sharing a house, driving a 10-year-old car, and still watching every dollar. Because the geography tax ate the difference. And this isn't just about rent. Groceries, utilities, transport, insurance, all of them shift dramatically depending on where you are. A weekly grocery shop that costs $140 in Brisbane might cost $185 in Sydney. Same items, same brands, same trolley, different city, different price. A lot of people spend years chasing a $20,000 pay rise, when they could get the equivalent of a $30,000 boost just by relocating, and nobody talks about it. Because it's not sexy advice, it doesn't fit on an Instagram infographic. But the geography tax is real, and it might be the most expensive tax you're paying right now without even knowing it. Now I want to show you something that will change the way you look at every salary number from this point forward. Because here's the truth: your pay level isn't what you think it is. Picture 2 Australians both earning $100,000 a year, same age, same city, same job title. On paper they're the same pay level, in reality they live in completely different worlds. One of them inherited a house from their parents, a 3-bedroom place in the suburbs worth around $800,000. They have no mortgage, no rent. Their $100,000 salary is almost entirely disposable income after tax and basic bills. The other one didn't inherit anything. They're paying $600 a week in rent, trying to save for a deposit. Watching house prices climb faster than their savings grow their $100,000 feels tight because it is tight. This isn't a hypothetical, this is Australia in 2026. There's a phrase you might have heard: the bank of mom and dad. It's been called the 9th largest mortgage lender in the country, and whether that exact ranking is perfectly precise, the reality behind it is undeniable. Intergenerational wealth transfers, parents helping with deposits, gifting property, covering private school fees. These invisible money flows are creating a hidden wealth layer that salary comparisons never capture. And it works the other way too. Someone earning $180,000 a year sounds wealthy, right? But strap a Sydney mortgage on top of that, add 2 car loans, private school for the kids, and suddenly $180,000 feels like survival money. Their neighbor earning $80,000 with no debt and a paid-off inheritance actually has more freedom, more options, more breathing room. The pay level you think you're standing on might not be your real position. Salary is just one layer underneath it. Sits inheritance, superannuation balance, negative gearing, property, family support. A whole invisible architecture of wealth or debt that the number on your payslip never reveals. So when someone tells you they earn X, remember you're only seeing the surface. What's underneath could tell a completely different story. Now let's talk about the number we've all been chasing, the one that was supposed to mean you'd made it 6 figures. $100,000 a year. For decades this was the number, the finish line, the benchmark. Parents pointed to, teachers referenced, financial advisors circled in red. Make $100,000 and you've made it, and for a long time that was true. In 2010, earning 6 figures in Australia put you well above the average. In 2020 it still meant something meaningful. It meant you could save for a home, invest, build a buffer, enjoy your life. But in 2026 something historic happened. The Australian Bureau of Statistics reported that average weekly ordinary time earnings hit $2,051.10. That works out to roughly $106,657 a year. For the first time in history, the average full-time salary in Australia crossed 6 figures. Let that land. 6 figures isn't the top anymore, it's the middle, the very definition of average. The number that generations of Australians chased as the ultimate goal is now the median, the benchmark is now the baseline. And here's where it gets painful. Remember that survey from the beginning. Australians say they need $389,000 a year to feel rich. That means the gap between what the average person earns and what they believe they need to feel wealthy is almost $300,000 a year. That's not a gap, that's a canyon, and it's growing every year. The government's new tax cut, dropping the rate from 16% to 15% starting July 1, 2026. Will save most workers a few $100s a year. That's a drop in the ocean when the perception gap is $300,000 wide. The 6-figure dream isn't dead, it just moved, and the question nobody can answer is, what's the new number, and does a new number even exist? Scientists actually tried to answer that question, and what they found might change how you think about every pay level on this list. For years there was a famous claim in psychology that money stops buying happiness at around $75,000 a year. Daniel Kahneman, one of the most respected researchers in behavioral economics, put that number forward, and it stuck. It became the go-to fact in every personal finance video, every dinner party debate, every self-help book. Then in 2021 a researcher named Matthew Killingsworth pushed back hard. He published data showing that actually happiness keeps rising with income well past $75,000. There was no plateau, no ceiling, the two camps argued publicly. And then something remarkable happened in 2023. Kahneman and Killingsworth sat down together, collaborated, and published a joint paper. Their conclusion was nuanced and fascinating. For about 85% of people, yes, more money does keep increasing happiness. There is no cliff, it just keeps going up. But for roughly 15% of the population, the unhappiest group, happiness flatlines at around $100,000 per year. No amount of extra income moves the needle for them. Now convert that to Australian dollars in 2026, accounting for exchange rates and purchasing power, and you land somewhere around $155,000 to $170,000 a year. That's the real sweet spot in Australia, the point where for most people money is doing its maximum work on your well-being. Below that threshold, more money genuinely makes life better. Above it, the returns start diminishing. And for that 15%, more money might actually add more stress, more complexity, more lifestyle commitments. without any corresponding increase in how good life actually feels. This is why you hear about people earning $250,000, $350,000 a year and still feeling empty. Still feeling like something's missing. It's not because they're ungrateful, it's because they've passed the happiness cliff. And no one told them it was there. They kept climbing, expecting the view to keep getting better. But at some point the altitude just gives you a headache. So if money stops working at some point, what's actually being measured at every pay level? The answer isn't dollars, it's something else entirely. Forget the salary number for a moment. Let me show you what each pay level really means measured in something you can actually feel: hours of your life. At $50,000 a year, your after-tax hourly rate works out to roughly $22. Now take Sydney's average rent, $550 a week, divide one by the other. You work 47 hours just to cover 1 week's rent. 47 hours, that's more than a full-time work week gone. Before you've bought a single grocery item, before you've paid a single bill, before you've lived a single moment of the life that apartment is supposed to give you. At $100,000, your after-tax hourly rate is around $36. Same rent, same city, 23 hours, that's 3 full working days just for the roof. At $150,000, your hourly rate climbs to about $51. Now that same rent costs you 12 hours. You earn it before lunch on Tuesday, same apartment, same city, same street. But one person spends their entire week working for the roof over their head, and the other is done by Tuesday midday. That's the difference between pay levels, not the number on your payslip, the hours of your life each dollar actually costs. Let's stretch this further. A restaurant dinner for two in Sydney runs about $140. At $50,000 a year, that dinner costs you 6.4 hours of work. At $150,000, it costs you 2.7 hours. A domestic flight Sydney to Melbourne economy is around $220. At $50,000, that's 10 hours of your life. At $150,000, it's 4.3 hours, same experience, same seat, same destination. But one person traded an entire workday for it, the other traded half an afternoon. Now here's what happens at the very top. At $350,000 a year, your after-tax hourly rate is around $73. That Sydney rent costs you 7.5 hours a week, that dinner costs 1.9 hours, that flight costs 3 hours. Everything is cheap in time terms, but here's the paradox: people at this level often work 60, 70, 80 hours a week. They've minimized the time cost of everything except the one thing they can't buy back: the time itself. They earn it fast and spend it faster, and at some point you have to ask, what exactly am I buying? The people who crack this equation aren't the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who find the pay level where time cost drops low enough that they actually get to live, and then they stop chasing. So here's where we land: $389,000. That's the number Australians said they need to feel rich. And now, after everything we've walked through, you can see why that number says nothing about money. It says everything about the brain. Your pay level isn't just your salary, it's your postcode, it's what your parents left you or didn't. It's whether you sit above or below the happiness cliff, it's how many hours of your one life each dollar costs you to earn. The real question at every pay level isn't what do I earn, it's does my money buy me more life or less? Because at the bottom, more money genuinely buys more life, more safety, more options, more sleep. At the sweet spot, the math is working perfectly for you, and past a certain point the money piles up, but the life doesn't expand, it might even shrink. Wherever you sit on the scale right now, the most powerful thing you can understand is that pay levels aren't a ladder, they're a map. And once you see the whole map, geography, hidden wealth, happiness, thresholds, time costs, you stop climbing blindly and start choosing wisely. If this changed how you see your pay level, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.